This industry is crazy. Hi, everybody. I'm Melanie Orr. I am a television director in Toronto. So essentially, I think about education in this industry because I did go to Niagara College. I took a 3-year course there, and it was like broadcasting. So you start off doing radio, TV, and film, and then you eventually break off into like presentation or production. And then I went into film. That school was amazing at the time when I went, which was like in the 90s, because they actually made films, and you made films with film stock, and you were making films in the first year. And for me, I'm a practical person, and that's really what I wanted to do, and I wanted to practice. But the school thing was, and I always say this, I go back to colleges and I teach all the time and I do workshops. And my one word of advice for upcoming people in this industry is do not wait until you graduate. There's so many projects where people are looking for people to help out, and there's so many different ways that you can learn. I mean, in a way, I'd love it if I could if I was starting out now, this would be amazing. I'm going to say no, because I came out of this pandemic with my project in September, and I was the pilot and lead director on a series, which was my first pilot. So in a way, that was the perfect project to come back to. So I would say no. I think sometimes we all need a break. This industry is crazy. It's very intense. And the hardest thing that I found with the pandemic was because 2019 was such a busy year for me. And when you go from show to show, you're working at this kind of adrenaline, you kind of drop it to here, then you go right back up to it. And when the pandemic hit, having all that time off for, what was it, 4 or 5 months or 6 months or something, and then going back to work, I wasn't used to that adrenaline anymore. Do I feel like I'm successful? Sometimes, yes, but the grass is always greener. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, you may have booked a job that you were working really hard for, and then you're like, oh, but I can't get these other kinds of jobs. Like it's the weirdest thing. So I think if you feel like you are successful, then I think you're at the top, and then where do you grow from there? Or maybe when I get to that point, there'll be something greener ahead of me. Right? So I don't know. It's interesting how we measure success in the industry. Like, what does success really mean? Is it everybody knows your name? Is it a project everybody loves? Is it personal success? Is it, I don't know. I think the measurement of success keeps changing. And I think depending on the day, it's different. It lays different with me. Yeah. Mentors are a great way to go. Like, reach out. I've mentored a number of people in this industry. I believe very strongly in giving back. I believe very strongly in offering support. I think, as I was saying before, that directing can be a very lonely job. And I think it's great to have somebody you can reach out to and talk to and ask questions. I mean, I've mentored people who've called me sometimes and been like, I'm shooting the scene and I'm having trouble on like how to block this one thing. And you're like, oh, no problem. Maybe we can work on this. Or some people calling me and just sort of saying like, what am I doing? What's the, how can I prepare for this interview or whatever. I mean, honestly, it's challenging. This job can be very challenging. And, as much as it is very creative, it's also very political. And, I think it's important that we all support each other. Well, it's interesting you ask if I've ever decided to call it quits as directing. I mean, I was not sure I wanted to direct. I started directing in 2006 was the first movie that I directed. And then I directed 3 movies. I did a bit of episodic television. And then I just didn't feel it. I wasn't interested. Like, the industry was very different then. It was very much a male-dominated industry. It was very hard to get work. And I also wasn't really that interested in the material that was around me. And I was having, we did not have an easy time having a child. And I was at a point in my life where I wasn't really into dealing with anybody else's emotions, if that makes sense. And then I did continuity on a show called Orphan Black, which you might have heard about. And I was sparked creatively on that show. And I just saw material that was exciting and story that was really exciting. And yeah, and then from there, I was like, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to try, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to see what happens. And I had applied to a television program with the NSI and I got in, and then it happened. And then it took off, and here we are. Yes and no. I mean, people like to hire somebody who does one specific thing. Like, oh, you're a comedy director, you direct comedy. That's perfect. We have a comedy show, this is for you. Where, I mean, I kind of do, I do a lot of kids, family stuff that I love. I do a lot of VFX shows. I do, sci-fi, basically ends up a lot of VFX. I do 1 hour. Because I kind of do it all, people would probably think maybe sometimes that's a hindrance because, what are you the master of? And I would say a specific genre isn't what I master in. What I master in is people, so it's more about, the stories and the performance and like, what does this show hold that sparks me and interests me to work on it, to direct. So the craziest thing about doing continuity is that I wasn't planning on becoming a director. I was very happy with doing continuity, and I'd be actually, more than anything, I would say I was more interested in the producing route. And then I was working with a production company doing continuity, and they were sort of encouraging me to direct. They were sort of saying things like, oh, you'd be a good director, and we kind of make jokes about it and everything. And then, eventually they'd offered me a movie. So the first thing I directed was a $1.5 million movie. And it was such an unbelievable experience. And what an amazing opportunity to be offered to me. And then I tasted directing and I thought, I love this. And, I did bounce back and forth between those two things for quite a while. And until finally a mentor told me that I should retire the stopwatch. And I did, and I listened to her, and she was right.